Welcome back to another episode. So today I'm going to talk about the teaching plateau because that's always a fun topic. Not to make anybody feel bad about themselves. Sometimes I feel bad about myself too. So don't worry. I've been there. Been there multiple times. So here we go. One thing that I've noticed is that there's a whole bunch of people. I'm not even going to put like a percentage on this because I don't know if it's like, oh, the majority of people, but a whole bunch of people that I've interacted with that they're so overly concerned with credentials. You know what I mean? You know, the certificate chasers. That's what I'm going to call them. The certificate chasers of ELT, the people that are just interested in getting certificates because they think that that is going to give them some sort of credibility. When in reality, and I learned this very, very early on, I think, in my life. In reality, I think that any educational opportunity that comes along, it, what you get out of it is what you put into it. That might have been my father coming out. I'm not sure. My dad says a lot. My dad had a lot of little things that he just hammered into my mom was always super supportive of us, but yeah, my dad always kind of had these little quips. I think I've turned into a mini Mark. So I think that's very disappointing for him sometimes. I was listening to my father though, so I feel like it's a good thing. Anyway, so um how did I learn this early on? So I went to well, I was accepted to and I did a couple years at one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. Extremely hard to get into. Um it's the United States Military Academy in New York. And I mean, it's like real hard to get into. You have to get uh, politicians have to nominate you. There's only so many nominations per year. You have to be accepted both academically, physically, blah blah blah. There's a bunch of things. And so anyway, so I managed to get in. I don't know how I did it. To be honest, I like high school is a little bit of a blur for me, but okay. So I managed to get in and I went there for a couple of years and it just wasn't for me. I had a series of things happen and I had to grow up real quick, I think, and figure out what I was going to do with my life. So, after having like knee surgery and blah, blah, I decided to leave there, but I got in, I did a couple of years and clearly it's a good school. Like it's a really good school. It's one of the hardest ones to get into in the nation and it's Ivy League. I think technically like it could be up there. I don't know. I got into other schools too, but sure. All right. So then got into that school. Good school. I was always kind of a decently dedicated student. So I could, navigate the classroom environment relatively effectively, efficiently, I guess we could say. I always got good grades, so it wasn't really an issue, but I didn't really love it there. Multiple reasons. It's fine. It was not about it. I actually really love my experience there. I'm grateful. I would never I don't think I would go again, but I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to kind of experience it because it gave me some, yeah. Then civilian life went into community college and took classes there. I was taking business classes there. I was taking Spanish classes, accounting, economics classes. What else? Yeah, I was doing like all sorts of just regular business classes because I was working. So I come from middle class, blue collar family. So I left the military academy, so I had to start working. But also I had to finish my degree because I only had like half the credits, so I had to figure something out. So I took like a few night classes at a community college. And I remember thinking to myself that there was not a big difference. Okay, there wasn't a big difference between the community college night classes, which were it was mostly adults and like people like me who had started university and moved or financial issues or things like that. You know what I mean? And then they were trying to finish their degree. There was a couple kids that like came straight out of high school that just went to the community college, but I have to say the vast majority of the night classes at a community college were adults like further education type of stuff. I got the same amount. If I had to quantify my knowledge, I got the same amount of knowledge out of West Point as I did out of the community college. And then I moved because I got a different job, which was great. So like because after I got out of the military, I moved back in with my mom temporarily. Then I got a job, and then I got my own apartment, and then I transferred from the community college to university online because I was working full time. So the only option that I had, like I wasn't able to take the night classes. I couldn't take classes in the morning. I was working in the accounting department. So anybody who has worked in finance and accounting, you know that at the end of the month, you have to stay for monthly closings. You have like it wasn't going to work out. So the only option that I had was to study online. Study online so that on Saturdays and Sundays, I would go to the public library and I and I would take the tests there at the public library because it was like registered. Where was it? It was like 3 cities over. I had to like drive really far to take the online test because it had to be at a proctoring site and then it was like a whole thing. Online courses, I got even more out of that than the fancy school and the community college. Online classes. And I was able to do, because I was pretty motivated to just like get my degree done because I had fallen in love. I was moving to Brazil. So I did 2 years, the last 2 years of my degree, I did in 6 months. So I did 4 times as many classes in a semester than an average student and worked full time. I was working 45 to 60 hours a week. But I still got more out of that in terms of like quantitative knowledge as opposed to going to school for all day and just focusing like all I did at the university at West Point was like all day I studied. On the weekends it was military stuff but I was studying all day and then anyways. So from that experience, welcome to my life. From that experience, I've learned that any educational environment, you get out of it what you put into it. I was really motivated by the end of my university, like my bachelor's experience, to get out of it as much as possible. And I was really engaged with the coursework and I was really interested in the coursework. And so I put a lot of effort into it. I studied all the time. My then boyfriend, now husband, was really supportive of me. He always like was, super aware. Like when I was studying, he left me alone for hours. He probably loved it too. I should probably do another course. He would probably be very thankful if I would leave him alone for hours. Anyways, but yeah, like it was just a really good experience for me, and it was I think I got slowly and progressively more autonomous in my learning and figured out ways that worked best for me. So these certificate chasers that just go through the motions and they tick the boxes, I think that not all is what it appears on people's resumes. I'm just gonna throw it that way. I'm just gonna throw it out there. I'm sure you could probably think of a few people, but I'm gonna throw it out there like that. So that one in your teaching plateau, when you get to, because we're surrounded by education all the time. We're in the classroom as teachers, but also we're in the classroom as students. Like we should be learning just as much as we should be teaching. And if we decide to join and get ourselves involved in some sort of teaching community or a course or something like that, then you should be putting a decent amount of effort into it, not just what do I need to do to get the certificate to check the box. This is my opinion. You can do whatever you want with your life, but for me, like I'm not going to spend my time on something and then walk out of it and then have people have the assumption that I should have some sort of basis of knowledge, and I clearly don't because I didn't put the right amount of effort into it. So there's that. Teaching plateaus can also come when you're just doing the same thing over and over again and not reflecting. We have taught the verb to be how many thousands of times? Oh God. Or like just yeah, like present perfect and that's simple that comparison or helping people with their structuring their presentations for work, but like thousands of times. Like I can't even count how many thousands of times I've done the same thing over and over again. Here's the thing. If you do the same thing over and over again without reflecting, yeah, you're just gonna keep doing it. It's like autopilot. But if you're reflecting and thinking about how could I make this better? Why did this person react this way and another person reacted a different way? What are some options or variations I could have on this that would be helpful for, because this person clearly is not in the same industry as this person. They're both doing presentations, but the register is a bit different because of the format. If you're not reflecting on those things, then you're just not growing. You're just going to be frustrated because you do the same things over and over again. And I've had many teachers come to me and say, Kelly, I don't want to teach beginners anymore. One of the things that I always think of is like people who are not willing to teach beginners. Not willing to. It's not like you can specialize, you can do whatever. Listen, you can do whatever you want. But people who are not willing to teach beginners, like I will not teach an A1 class. I don't want A1 students. I don't want, you know what I mean? Like they're like super against. I think, first of all, my perspective on this is I think beginners are super fun because everything is new for them and they get really excited. It's like they're little sponges because they have nothing. And so then they absorb everything. And then that's really fun for me. But okay. I can see the frustration of teaching beginners, but I also think to myself, if you don't like teaching beginners, let me rephrase that. If you avoid or deny teaching beginner classes, I'm thinking it's probably because you're on autopilot. Personal opinion. Because like beginners are kind of fun. Like who doesn't want to play some like game memory games and do all that type of stuff because they're just absorbing everything. Like who doesn't want to play, you know? I don't know. Like I think beginners are I think every kind of level has their own positive things. Like I don't teach a lot of beginners now, but I still do teach beginners. Why would you not want to teach a beginner? I don't know. Okay, I don't know. And for me there's something fishy. Okay. Lack of structured professional development is another reason for the teaching plateau because you take some like courses here and there. I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm going to this conference, I'm doing this, and it's like, yeah, where are you going? Like, what are you doing? So, like, there's a lot of things that are really interesting for me, and then I had to learn how to say no because if I didn't say, I do like information. I am an information gatherer, but I had to learn how to say no because there's a lot of things that are interesting for me that do not get me to where I want to go. So if you have a lack of structured professional development, then you are going to hit a plateau because you're going to feel like you're doing a bunch of stuff. You're always working, you're always learning, you're always doing courses, and you're getting nowhere. Well, because you don't think about, like, this is where I want to go. And so what are the courses that are going to get me here? This is one of the things that I was working with, like the group of teachers at the school that I just left and all of that type of stuff. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do? Okay, so then when we figure out what you want to do, then we can figure out how to get you there. But one of the hardest things is writing down in specifics exactly what your objective is. And if you can do that, half of your problem is solved, because all of those specifics and all the details of what you want to do is going to answer all the questions of what should I do for professional development? What should be my next CPD course? You just find things that fit exactly where you're going. Another thing of hitting a teaching plateau is not having any feedback or mentoring. I've used mentors throughout my career. Some of them have been wonderful. Some of them have been not so great. Some of them have shown their true colors. I don't know. Like, it is what it is. You got to find mentors. You got to find people. But when you're picking a mentor, don't pick someone just because you idolize them. That's a weird, first of all, that's a weird way to pick a mentor. We shouldn't really be idolizing anybody in academics, but okay. You can respect them. That's fine. But like idolizing them, you know what I'm talking about. Like people like fangirl over people. It's like, ooh, that's a little cringy. So picking a mentor, who's in a position that you want to be in? Who has experience doing exactly what you want to do? Who has the credentials of a person that is the ideal person that you would like to be? And how can they help you get through that credentialing process? I'm going to give you a couple of examples. Without being too, like, because I'm not trying to pick on anyone, it would be very unlikely for me to work with someone in a professional capacity, like mentoring or coaching or training with somebody who has less experience. Let me qualify. Hang on. I know people are going to freak out a little bit. Less experience, less credentials, and is not in a position that I would like to be in. Because if you have less experience than me, then I'm not sure what you're bringing to the table. Unless, let me give you a little asterisk, okay? Less experience, but if they have a very specialized experience that I'm interested in gathering that type of experience for myself, then I'm good with it. Like if I want to work with somebody because I want to get more information about a specific topic or something like that, then I don't care how much, like if you're an expert in that, then I'm going to work with you. That's fine. Less credentials. I know this, oh, you can learn from everyone. Shh, you certainly can learn from everyone. However, I think that there is a big difference of someone being able to give you some guidance and someone being able to give you perspective. And those two things are not necessarily going to work in combination with someone who has less experience, or less credentials, sorry. If they have less credentials than me, then they certainly are going to open my eyes to different perspectives. Sure. But I know what I've done. I haven't done a lot, but I know what I've done. You know what I mean? Like I did the whole thing with Cambridge. Like I did like Silton Delta. I did the teacher training thing. I did the International House Advanced Methodology thing. I became a CELTA tutor. You know what I mean? Like I've done some stuff. I haven't done a lot, but I've done some stuff just kind of over the course of being in the industry. So I've done a couple things. But so I have like some credentials, some, not a lot, but I got a couple, I got a couple certificates with me. Those couple certificates have some experience behind them because I had to go through that experience. If you don't have that experience, the only thing that you can really offer me then is a perspective. You can't offer me guidance. Does that make sense? Like if someone, like for example, if I joined a course and it was supposed to be like a higher level course for someone in, like with my experience, like 15 years of teaching, like CELTA Delta qualified, is a tutor for some of those courses, you know what I mean? Like is getting trained up and working on being trained up to be tutors of higher level courses. Like if I'm doing all of this and you have CELTA, which is not a problem, what could you give me guidance on? That's my question. It's not a criticism. Like you certainly can give me perspective, but like what would you be able to guide me on in my career? I've kind of technically done more stuff than you. So like I don't know how you're going to if it's giving perspective, if it's showing like value content, interesting things, look at this different topic that it's something that you haven't addressed, but it's something that I did. That's great. I'm super into it. But you know what I'm saying? So, so yeah, if you don't have the experience, I can certainly learn from you if you have something very specific or a different perspective. If you don't have the credentials, I can certainly get perspective from you, but I'm probably not going to get guidance from you. Yeah, it's just so if you don't have this feedback, the whole point of this is like mentoring, coaching, or whatever. It's like if you don't have the feedback from someone who can give you a little bit of a different vision, again, a kind of a different perspective of someone who's been through some similar things to you or is trying to guide you through a new process that they have the experience in. I mean, you need that feedback to be able to grow. So I'm not really sure where how some people are like selecting the people that they're going to work with. Do you know what I mean? Like you got to work with people that are going to they're bringing something to the equation, and not just, oh, they have really nice ideas. Like, well, can they execute the ideas? There's a lot of those influencers that tell you like, oh, you're going to make 10,000 a month with my method. Super quick. I know how to build a business. I know how to. I would love for them, like if they say like, you're going to be billing out more than 10K a month. If you're in Brazil, you know exactly who I'm talking about. There's about 3 or 4 of them that are just looming around on the internet, specifically Instagram, but other places too. I don't know about the rest of the world. I live in Brazil. This is the only perspective I can give you. Yeah, those people, I would love for them to just take a screenshot of their bank accounts, the transactions. I want to know. I want to know, are you really making more than 10K a month? Or the people that say like, let me show you how to run your school. There's 2 that I'm thinking about right now. I'm the expert on how to run your school. What's the name of your school again? I'm just wondering. I'm not trying to be like rude, but like what school are you running, buddy? Like if you're going to tell me how to run my school, then please tell me how your school is run. Like I would love to see it. So those are the type of things what I mean, like mentoring and like feedback. It's not just choosing someone because they have a pretty Instagram profile and like they put a bunch of stuff out there that marketing wise it's fantastic. Strategically, they know how to position themselves as experts. But then if you're like, can you just show me your bank account? We have a thing here in Brazil, nota fiscal. I mean, you should be able to look it up. So just a thought. Anyways, all right. So then teaching plateau. So again, if you're not getting good feedback from people or it's something that is actually worth your time, then maybe you're going to kind of hit a little plateau and it's going to be frustrating for you. CPD. Here's the thing about CPD. Well, I talked about it with my little anecdotal story of my educational experience at the beginning of the podcast, but it's your CPD should lead to action. Like you should, if you take a course, Like something should change. This is one thing that I actually really love about CELTA. Okay, people can talk trash about CELTA and they can say, CELTA teacher. I've seen it. Listen, I've seen it. CELTA teachers are not qualified. Blah, blah. It's the initial certification. Cool, that's fine. However, from a tutor's perspective, let me tell you, CPD like CELTA should not be traumatic, hopefully, but also people should be doing things that are actually impacting what they're doing in the day-to-day. I've had in every single course that I've been on, every single one, every course that I've been on, when people do the CELTA, at some point in the course, someone says, I started doing this in my classes, my regular classes, my private classes, or I started doing this at the school I work at, and it works. And it was really helpful for people. That is continuous professional development. Not just talking about things and having checkboxes. Like, okay, theories are nice and all of that good stuff. It's fantastic. I love it. I love having the conversations. I have a podcast, for God's sakes, and I have a bunch of people coming on here. I always interview people. I enjoy conversations. I am a chatty person. But at the same time, you have to have some action that follows that. If you don't have any action, like, I don't know what you're doing. So if you're going to do a course, think about, at the end of this course, what are the deliverables of the course, and how am I going to implement those in my day-to-day? Because if you're not doing that, I'm not really sure what you're doing. I have been, well, for other reasons too. I'll get into that in another episode. I've been stagnant a little bit in my CPD because I don't know which course I want to do because I'm still comparing deliverables. I have eliminated some courses like that doesn't serve me. That's not going to be interesting. I don't want to do that. So I've been able to eliminate some, but there's a few courses that I'm looking into and it's like, which one is going to give me what I need to be able to go forward? I'll figure it out. By the end of the semester, don't you worry. I've only started thinking about it recently too, so okay. Give me a break. All right. What else do I have to say about this topic? Oh, okay. I need notes because, again, tangents are like my mortal enemy here. All right. Anyways, so going back to like what people need to do, you need to set some like teaching goals. We set goals for students all the time. So setting goals for yourself, SMART goals, like using the acronym SMART, is really helpful because then it's like, unless you're not really good with accountability. If you're not good at accountability, set a goal and tell a friend and then have your friend stay accountable for what you're doing. But setting goals really helps people just kind of make things tangible instead of just floating in a direction. So like give yourself some time-bound SMART goals and try to execute them. I highly recommend getting regular feedback. One thing that's real fun for me, another tangent anecdote. One thing that's real fun for me is when I get to do the demo lessons for the CELTA groups. So I get to teach, and then the candidates, the CELTA candidates, the teachers, they give me feedback. It's real fun. It's real fun for me because so tutors always have to teach the demo lessons in the beginning. I mean, not always. It's kind of standard practice at this point. 95% of the time, tutors are teaching. Like, we always teach the demo lessons. The first demo lesson, real fun, because they don't know what they're looking for. They have no idea. They're just like, it's like the deer in headlights trauma shock of like entering into CELTA. They've gotten the course agenda, and so they're like just they're panicking over like dates and assignments and everything else, and like, what am I teaching? And so they panic. It's fun. It's fun. They get through it. Everybody gets through it. It's not a big deal. Anyways, they watch the first lesson. They have no idea what they're looking for. And you kind of gotta like give them some observation notes and stuff like that. The feedback, amazing. It's really nice. I thoroughly enjoy it because it's funny to see what people pick out. So Eastern Europeans are some of my favorites because they are just they're so blunt. They just tell it like it is. I love them. They're like, that didn't go how you wanted because you said this and the students did something else. I was like, I know. That look at that little unanticipated problem that happened. It's just, anyways, fun stuff like that. Um, yeah, Asians in general, just very polite. I think it's the cultural influence of just the hierarchy of like a tutor and a candidate, which is fine. But anyway, it's funny to see what people pick out and what people see. And then the second half, when CELTA candidates, when they flip, so they have to teach two different levels, and then they flip, and then they're with a new tutor, a new group, and so usually there's a demo lesson so that the candidates get to see the students before teaching them. And that's fun because they've got a little experience under their belt and they're feeling their oats a little bit. Like they're feeling like they can like provide some more. And so the commentary there is always fun too. All I'm saying is this feedback's a good thing. I don't necessarily take it as a bad thing. The only time that I was really irritated with feedback is when one of my tutors in like an official course gave me feedback like, "Oh, it was fine. I wouldn't change a thing." I was so disappointed with that feedback. I was like, "What do you mean? Like, what are you talking about? No, like I'm here to learn. Critique me." I was actually really frustrated by that feedback though. I think that was the only feedback that I've ever gotten in my life that I just didn't like. Anyways, so yeah, so my wrapping up this episode, my recommendations would be to like set regular goals for yourself, really kind of get over whatever issue you might have of being observed and receiving feedback, and if possible, find a person that you let me rephrase this. Find a person that's in a position or doing something that is something that you think is a future goal of yours and see if you can pick their brain. I think that would be the best way of saying it. See if you can pick their brain. See if you can say, okay, like, how did you do this? How does this work? Recently, I was going to wrap it up, but I got one more. I recently was talking to a friend of mine, and he's doing not exactly what I would like to do because his area of expertise is very different from mine. But what he does in terms of like traveling around, working with different institutions, he's hooked up with a couple institutions. It's kind of like an official representative doing some things. Is something that I was interested in doing. Like, how does that happen? And so he because we're friends and he's very nice, and I do see him kind of as a guide. He's like a guide for me of navigating certain things in the ELT profession. But I asked him, I was like, how does this work? And how did you get this position? And who did you talk to be able to do this and that? So I was having these conversations with him and he told me. And you know what I realized? I don't want to do that. It was a great conversation. I realized that I was like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, interesting. He's doing this. He's doing that. He's like connected as a representative. So he gets to go different places and do like training and teacher development and stuff like that. And I asked him, how did you get hooked up with like this editor and this publisher and da, da, da. And he was explaining it to me. And then he explained to me like what actually happens when he goes to different places as a representative for those institutions. I was like, oh no, never mind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that information, because actually it was going to be something that I was going to maybe go off into and think about. And then I thought about it and I was like, that's not me. So mentoring program, find a person, ask people who have gone through the things that you think you want to go through. I think that's a really, really helpful way of staying out of that teacher plateau, because you think you're going in the direction. So if you have some goals and you're achieving these little milestones along the way, you're getting feedback, you're growing and stuff, but then also talking to people that have done it. You can talk to other people too, obviously. You don't always have to go to someone like, oh, this person, but if you're looking to do something specific and the person's done it, great. It's pretty hard to have someone above you who is less qualified than you or has the same qualifications or the same experience. Like, I would be very frustrated if I were working for an institution that said, oh, this is your superior, and they had the same or less credentials, experience, and knowledge than me. And then who am I going to go for guidance? How is that person going to help me? What are you talking about? I've seen it before. Like, people are like, oh, but they have tenure. Like, they've been working here for years. It's like, yeah, it's great. They have tenure, but like, surpassing them in professional goals. Like, what? So how are they going to help me? Like, what are they going to do? What sort of guidance is that person going to provide? So I always look to find, I always collect perspectives. That person is not, oh, that person is not useful for me. No, that's a really horrible way of looking at the scenario. No, that person is useful because you can exchange perspectives, you can bounce ideas off of each other. It's a very useful person in your life. But if they're supposed to be the superior that's guiding me and they don't have experience in doing the things that I need guidance in, I don't really know how useful that person is. It's just a thought. But regardless, the ending message is that you can't be passive. Like, you can't be passive when you're doing professional development. Otherwise, you're just going to get stagnant. You're going to get stuck and you're going to get frustrated. So start trying to be more proactive and action based. What am I going to do? How am I going to do this? Even if you need to have thinking time, you still need to process information. Like, this is my whole podcast, is me processing information. It's my thinking time. Anyways, good luck with your CPD. Hopefully you're not in a teaching plateau, but if you are in a teaching plateau, hopefully these tips or some of the anecdotes were mildly entertaining, if not useful. I'm hoping we're going for useful, but if not, hopefully you were entertained. That's it for today. See you later.